She was wearing the red lipstick, not the everyday one she dabbed on before work or errands, the one reserved for weddings or anniversaries. I recognized the shade immediately, crimson with just enough sheen to catch the light and make you feel small. She stood in front of the mirror, angling her neck like it was a photo shoot, earrings swaying with every movement. I leaned on the doorway, arms crossed. She hadn't even noticed I was watching her, not until I said, "Why so dressed up?" She smiled, light, effortless, the kind of smile people wear when they've already made a decision and are hoping you don't ask questions. "Oh, my ex is in town," she said, brushing her dress smooth. "Just coffee. I'll explain later." I paused, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I already knew what this was. A test, a quiet dare. She was watching to see if I'd break character, if I'd yell or beg or flinch. I didn't. I nodded. "Okay, babe." And that word felt heavier than it had in years. She leaned forward, kissed my cheek like a sister might kiss a distant cousin at a funeral, and grabbed her coat. Then she was gone. Hey, real quick before we go further, if you're one of the 97% of people listening who hasn't subscribed yet, now's the time. It takes a second, but it helps more than you know. And a like? That tells the team we should keep these stories coming. The door clicked shut with that soft finality you only hear when someone's sure you won't follow. I stood in the hallway for a while, listening to the silence she left behind. Her perfume still hung in the air, something floral, unfamiliar, new. I went to the window, watched her pull out of the driveway. She didn't look back. That night, I made dinner for one. Pasta, something simple. She texted me around 9. "Sorry, coffee turned into dinner. We got it talking. I'll be home soon." She came back an hour later, smiling like nothing had happened. Like the part where she reconnected with someone she once loved and didn't bother to hide it was just background noise. I nodded, asked if she had a good time. She said, "He's changed." I didn't respond, just watched her walk to the bedroom humming. She slipped off her heels, set them by the door, and disappeared into the bathroom. I stared at those shoes for a long time. Something about the way they leaned against each other. Too casual, too at ease, like they knew they wouldn't be worn for anyone else but him. And I realized she hadn't worn that red lipstick for me in years. She wore it for him, and didn't even flinch while doing it. She came into the kitchen barefoot, humming the same lazy tune from the night before, like we were still some sitcom couple sharing orange juice and Sunday plans. Her hair was damp from the shower, knotted up with the same silk tie I gave her 2 Christmases ago. "Coffee went long," she said casually, reaching for the French press I'd already emptied. "He's changed, you know. We just talked." I didn't look up from my laptop, just nodded. The way a man nods when he knows something she doesn't think he's smart enough to notice. She kept talking. About nothing. Weather. Groceries. Yoga. The words floated past like steam from her mug. Meaningless. Distracting. I had already rerouted my direct deposit to a private account she didn't know existed. Opened 2 months ago. Just in case. Next, I disconnected her access to our shared cloud. Photos, passwords, personal notes. She wouldn't notice, not until she reached for something and realized it was gone. I wasn't erasing things, just moving them, quietly, like you shift weight before a storm hits. She was scrolling through her phone now, smiling again, the kind of smile that tried too hard to look casual. "I might meet up with Casey later," she said. "Girls' brunch." I nodded again. That's when I changed the door code. Quietly. New key in my pocket. Old one disabled. No more remote access. No more garage clicker. She didn't notice. The thing about women like her is they mistake silence for softness. They think if you're not shouting, you're swallowing. But I wasn't burying anything. I was building. Later that day, she asked if I could help her find a receipt on our shared drive. I told her I'd look into it. Then I logged her out of everything. iCloud, Google, shared banking. She raised an eyebrow when the fingerprint login failed on her laptop. I shrugged. Tech issue, maybe. She believed it because she needed to. She thought I was sulking, nursing some bruised ego, waiting for her to explain it all away with charm and half-lies. But I wasn't sulking. I was building an exit. Every folder I touched, every password I reset, every trace I pulled from the digital fog weighed more than the words she wasn't saying. By sunset, I had mapped out 3 weeks of movement, consolidated assets, and set an alert on our shared credit card for unusual charges. She made a smoothie that evening, kissed my cheek again, and went to the couch to scroll through TikTok, laughing at videos with people who still believe their partners wouldn't lie to them for fun. I sat at the table staring at the blender she left running for 2 extra seconds. She always did that, said it helped smooth the ice better. I'd gotten used to her little habits. She never noticed mine, especially the one where I never react in real time, only in precision. She thought she was clever, smiling into her phone like a teenager with a crush, thumb tapping fast, screen tilted just out of my line of sight. When I'd enter the room, she'd flip it face down like that made it invisible. I didn't ask. That would have given her something to deny, and I'd stopped giving her safe lies to offer. She said he was just visiting, flying in for a conference, staying downtown, no big deal, one coffee, some shared memories, and closure. That's what she claimed. But closure doesn't text you goodnight at 11:47 p.m. Closure doesn't tag you in private memes or send heart emojis at 3 a.m. Closure doesn't ping near your house. Twice. In 1 week. I checked the logs from our mesh router. She'd forgotten that everything with a MAC address leaves a scent if you know where to look. His phone had a distinct signature, one I pulled from a forgotten Bluetooth sync request buried in our smart speaker history. The first ping was Sunday night, 9:12 p.m. She told me she went to grab oat milk. The second was Tuesday afternoon, 1:36 p.m., her nail appointment. The third was near her yoga studio, Thursday morning. He'd hovered just long enough to trigger the access point near the front entrance, as she claimed class ran late. That's not yoga, that's proximity. I still didn't say a word, didn't ask. Didn't rage, I called someone else. Not a friend, not a private investigator either. I knew better than to involve amateurs. I called someone who owed me a favor, a quiet favor. From a time before her, he was in cybersecurity now, corporate level stuff, married, 2 kids, no drama. He asked one question, is this about her? I didn't answer. He said, send me the timestamps, I'll build the trail. While she stretched on her mat and texted him under the studio lights, I was gathering data points. He liked Android, she had iOS. That mismatch left crumbs all over their connection points. By the time she posted a story captioned, stretch and sweat, we'd already logged the last 3 cell towers he'd hit in a 5-mile radius. His hotel was not downtown. It was 4 blocks from our neighborhood. She came home that night glowing, told me about deep hip openers and how hard the instructor pushed her. She showed me a new pose, laughing. I smiled too. She didn't know I'd already seen him walk past the front of our house twice. I made a mental note to check our doorbell camera, see if his face ever lingered. She thought she was playing in shadows. But I'd built the lighting, I'd designed the stage, and now I knew which curtains she thought she could hide behind. It was 9:04 a.m. when the photo went up. I saw it seconds after she posted. A cinnamon latte, 2 mugs on a table, blurred background. She'd used that soft Paris filter that makes everything look nostalgic, like nothing real ever happened there. The caption read, "Closure is a warm cup." I stared at it for a long moment, not because of the photo, but because she'd finally stopped pretending. I clicked through the comments. First one, he's married, right? Second, bold move. No likes, no hearts, just the kind of quiet that shows up when even your friends don't know how to defend you. She was in the shower when I checked her page. I could still hear the water running, her humming something half-hearted and out of tune. I scrolled back to her feed, trying to see if she'd posted anything else recently, but that was it, just that single image, a shot not meant for me, a message she didn't think I'd decode. I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't even screenshot, I didn't have to. 3 hours later, my phone buzzed. A DM request from a private account with no profile picture. I hesitated, then opened it. The message was short. You don't know me, but I'm his wife. Just like that, no emojis, no punctuation after the period, just the ice-cold clarity of a woman who's moved past suspicion and into fact. I read it twice before I replied. I thought he was your ex. She responded instantly. That's what he said about her. I didn't ask for proof. She didn't offer it, didn't need to. The photo was proof enough. The coffee, the caption, the timing. He'd told his wife it was over. She'd told me it was harmless. Meanwhile, they'd been sipping closure from matching mugs like no one else existed. The next message came 5 minutes later. He's been lying. I checked his call logs. They're always around her studio. Her name is still saved as Avery Career Coach. Cute. I stared at the screen. Avery, that was the name she used professionally. She said clients respected it more than her real one, said it sounded stronger. Apparently he thought so too. I didn't reply right away. Down the hall, I heard her step out of the shower, padding across the tile, singing now. She was in a good mood. She always was after seeing him. I wondered if she'd noticed her own patterns, wondered if she thought I hadn't. The last message from the wife came hours later. We should talk. I think we're both owed that much. I closed my phone and realized this wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about the two people they'd both underestimated, me and her. She called after midnight. Not because it was convenient, but because that was when the silence pressed in hardest for both of us. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she'd been crying earlier, had that hollow softness around the edges, like she'd rehearsed the first few lines and then let them fall apart halfway through. I found the messages, she said. Late ones, photos, stupid jokes about old memories, his favorite motels still saved in his Google Maps. Guess who else checked in last week? I didn't have to guess. I was sitting in the dark, cross-legged on the living room floor, phone to my ear, the faint blue glow from the TV casting shadows across the carpet. I could have lied, pretended I didn't know how far it had gone, but I was done protecting her from the weight of her own choices. He said it was innocent, she continued, quieter now. I almost smiled. Mine too. A pause, and then she laughed, just once, sharp and exhausted. You know what gets me, she said. He acted like I should be proud of how honest he was being. I told you I met her for coffee, like that's a confession, like that makes the backseat meetings and deleted texts, okay? I know, I said. She looked me in the eye and called it closure, like her past somehow deserved more grace than her present. We sat in that shared ache for a long moment, two strangers linked by the same knife, neither of us asking the other to pull it out, just acknowledging the wound. She told me more, about the first time she got suspicious, how he started dressing nicer, shaving again, smiling at his phone the way he hadn't smiled at her in years, how he got a new playlist and started quoting movies he hadn't seen since college. He was preparing, she whispered, for someone else. I know, I said again. There was something sharp in that mutual knowing, a clarity, like we'd both stopped trying to interpret the lie and instead decide to read the silence between it. We didn't talk revenge, not out loud, but the idea was there, coiled between our words like static. They loved the secrecy, she said after a while. That's what did it, not the affection, not even the sex, just the thrill of being hidden. They liked the feeling of being the exception, I added, the little fantasy outside the lines. So let's give them a new fantasy. That was her line, not mine, and it landed hard. We agreed on a few things right then, nothing dramatic, no threats, no public showdowns, just a quiet plan built on shared truths, a message neither of them would see coming. The next morning, I booked a weekend away under a name she wouldn't recognize, a place just far enough to seem accidental but close enough to feel familiar. She booked the same lodge. 2 rooms, separate but connected. We didn't need to say more than that. They'd chosen shadows. We'd chosen something quieter, light. I sent the text on a Thursday morning, out of town, back Sunday. She didn't ask where, didn't ask why. Just replied with a thumbs up emoji like we were co-workers coordinating calendars, not spouses trading space. That was her tell, the lack of curiosity. She didn't think I mattered anymore. Not enough to track, not enough to question. She thought she'd trained me into quiet compliance, into fading into the backdrop while she chased whatever thrill she thought was owed to her. Perfect. An hour later, I was on the highway, headed north. Trees turned gold and rust outside my window, leaves spinning like reminders that everything eventually falls. She thought I was sulking somewhere in the city. I wasn't. I pulled into the gravel lot of the lodge just before sunset. Remote, quiet, a little too polished for its price point. Perfect for the kind of weekend people lie about. She arrived half an hour later in a separate car, checked into a different room. We didn't hug, didn't linger, just nodded to each other in the hallway, 2 people on a quiet mission, fueled by clarity and exhaustion. Inside my room, I laid everything out on the desk, printed call logs, time-stamped GPS pings, screenshots. She brought her own stack, receipts from hotel confirmations, email alerts from their shared calendar, a selfie he accidentally took from their bedroom mirror with my wife's hand, just barely visible. Her camera was older but solid. She checked the battery, packed a second lens. I asked if she needed help. She didn't. This isn't to humiliate them, she said, steady. just to mirror their game back to them. Nothing louder than what they gave us. I nodded. Understood. That night, we sat in the lodge restaurant, a quiet corner booth near the fireplace. No touching, no flirting, just two people drinking wine like war generals comparing maps. She showed me one final message her husband sent. "Wish we could freeze time," it read. "You're still the only one who sees me." I shook my head, not at the words, but at the fact that I'd once believed her when she said he was ancient history. He wasn't, he was the blueprint, and now he'd returned to finish what she always left open. "Will they come here?" I asked. She shrugged. "They've done it before." We waited, not to catch them, to remind them we were never blind, just quiet. And now the silence was tactical. Her text came at 4:12 p.m. "Miss you. Let's reconnect this weekend?" Just us. I stared at it for a moment, not because I didn't expect it, but because I knew exactly why she sent it. He'd gone cold or busy, or had to explain something to his wife. Whatever the excuse, he'd disappeared just long enough for her to start reaching back toward the safety net she'd been slowly slicing holes into. I replied simply, "Already booked," and she responded with a heart. No question, no curiosity, just that soft bait she always used when she wanted to reset the story. It used to work, used to make me lean in again, buy into the illusion that what we had was just bruised, not broken. Not anymore. Downstairs, the fire in the lodge restaurant cast slow, flickering shadows on the wood-paneled walls. Couples murmured over dinner. A jazz trio played in the corner. Nobody noticed us. That was the point. We sat at a small table near the back. Her ex's wife. No makeup, hair pulled back, calm as steel. She ordered red. I followed. She looked across the table at me and said, "They always think they're the only ones who know how to move in silence." I nodded. She pulled out her phone, adjusted the angle. "Ready?" I leaned slightly forward, just enough to be in frame but not close. Not intimate, just visible, present with her. She snapped the photo. We looked composed, not smug, not flirty, just calm, like we were there on purpose with a truth neither of them could edit. She uploaded the image, no caption, just a location tag, Eldridge Pines Lodge. It wasn't a jab, it wasn't meant to start a war. It was a mirror. Let her see the place she thought was hers reflected back through someone else's lens. 10 minutes later, the typing bubble appeared on my screen. Her name. 3 dots. Then nothing. It vanished. Then again. "Where are you?" I didn't reply. Instead, I watched her ex's wife adjust her wine glass and nod toward the fire. "He brought her here once, last spring. They stayed in room 3C. "I'm in 2A, I said. We didn't toast. Didn't smile, just sipped. A storm was forming outside, wind picking up, branches tapping against the window. Inside, everything was still, waiting. Her text came mid-morning. "Where did you go? Are you okay?" I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering. It wasn't concern. It was panic dressed as affection. She'd noticed the silence, the shift, the absence of routine check-ins, and the dull predictability she'd grown comfortable ignoring. But this wasn't about routine anymore. This was the echo after a door quietly shuts and locks. I scrolled to the photo on my phone. The one we'd taken by the lodge fireplace. Her ex's wife in a black sweater, calm and direct. Me beside her, composed. Our expressions not smug, not even cold. Just steady, not leaning into each other. Just sitting, wine in hand, clear and unmistakable. I attached it to the message, hit send. No words, no caption, no context, just that one image, and I knew what it would do. She'd study it frame by frame, trying to decode what she wasn't told, wondering how, when, why. She'd see the wine glasses and the soft glow of the fire and realize she wasn't the only one who could paint intimacy and suggestion. The read receipt pinged instantly, then nothing. No reply. I waited. She cracked 3 minutes later. "Why are you with her?" I didn't answer. Did you plan this?" Still nothing. "Is this a joke? Tell me this is a joke." I turned off read receipts. It was never a joke. It was architecture. A slow, measured reply to months of being treated like wallpaper. I'd watched her come and go like her presence was a favor, like I should be grateful for whatever piece of her she was willing to loan that day. Now she saw it, saw herself from the outside. No lies, no yelling, no revenge campaign, just a single image that rewrote the story she thought she controlled. I could imagine her scrolling, zooming in, looking for clues. How long had we known? When did this happen? What did we know? And the real fear, the one tightening around her ribs, was this. What else have they shared? The silence answered for me. She called first. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, one after another like pebbles against a closed window, harmless but relentless. Please, can we talk? It's not what it looks like. I made a mistake, okay? I didn't think you'd... That was the line that stopped me cold. I didn't think you'd, as if my silence had been a guarantee, as if quiet meant weak, as if restraint was the same thing as surrender. I sat at the kitchen table, her old tea mug still in the sink, her shoes still by the door, like she might walk in any second and undo it all with a smile. I opened the shared archive, pulled the thread. There they were, her messages to him, sloppy and careless, typed late at night in the same bed she once curled into beside me. The photos, the inside jokes, the little lines that made a person feel chosen while someone else lay in the same house, unchosen. I packaged them, along with the hotel confirmation she thought she'd deleted, booked under a pseudonym that wasn't clever enough. Same lodge, room 3C. The weekend she said she was at Casey's cabin. No signal. I waited until she called again, let it buzz twice, then hung up and sent the email. Subject, since you wanted to talk. Attachments, chat log, PDF, lodge confirmation screenshot, divorce terms final.pdf. No body text, no greeting. She read it within seconds. I knew she would. 3 dots appeared, paused, disappeared, reappeared. Then the call came again. I watched the screen, let it ring, then muted it. She texted one more time. You didn't even let me explain. I responded, just one sentence. I already read your version. And that was it, the final shift, the moment where she realized the person she thought would sit in the corner forever waiting had already left the stage and taken the script with them. She'd performed the whole act assuming no one was watching. She didn't know the spotlight was already on her. And now the curtain was falling. I waited until just after midnight, logged out of the shared phone plan, our names side by side like strangers on a bill neither of us wanted to pay anymore. Disconnected my line first, then hers. No warning. Just gone. Clean. The joint folder we'd use for tax returns, travel plans, grocery lists. I opened it one last time, scanned the contents. Her resume draft still sat there untouched since March. A half-finished birthday itinerary for my dad she'd never followed through on. Old files that once meant something, select all, delete, empty trash. Then I opened my contacts, blocked her number, iMessage, WhatsApp, Signal, Instagram, Facebook. Every window she might lean through just to say something I'd already heard in 12 different lies. Everything closed, except email. That I left open. I knew she'd find it eventually. Knew she'd try one last time to rewrite the ending. The message came 2 days later. Subject, are we really done? Inside, just one line. Why didn't you fight for us? I stared at the screen, the nerve of that sentence. As if I hadn't fought. As if staying silent through betrayal wasn't a kind of war. As if surviving her performance hadn't cost me pieces I'll never get back. I scrolled to the image on my desktop, the one from the lodge. Me, her ex's wife. 2 glasses of wine. That perfect edge of composure in both our faces. Attached it, no words, no subject. Just the picture. Hit send, close the tab. Some stories don't need retelling, some endings don't need punctuation, and some truths speak loudest when all that's left is the image of what you never expected to see.